people are taking these supplements that are backfiring. And that leads me into other supplements that could be backfiring, like sulfur-based supplements, MSM. And then we had talked about, for me personally, creatine, how that could be triggering some things and fortifying the varicella virus, among other things. So let's talk about some supplements that could be damaging you.
So MSM is really interesting because that's used in a lot of formulations for joint and for the head. And even before the pandemic, if you're an overmethylator, which people are it's very little talked about. So let's just deconstruct what methylation is and how you, as a practitioner or as a layperson, understand your methylation pathways. It's not just about MTHFR, guys, and not that mother fricker gene, as we call it. It's not just about that. It's just one of many in the methylation pathway. If you also have the COMP gene, if you also have a CBS gene, which has to do with sulfation, those three genes, in my experience, can help you become an over-methylator. And so what does that mean? It means that B12 is going to be a problem because B12 then becomes excitatory. It means that SAMe is also going to be a problem because you also have that CBS gene, and that's a sulfur processing gene. It means that folate is going to be a problem because it's going to increase that methylation. So that alone, before the pandemic, we were having issues with overmethylation. Now enter the spike protein turning on the histamine response, which then intersects with sulfur, which then if you have those other two genes are really going to make you overmethylating. And then MSM, glutathione, garlic supplementally, alpha lipoic acid, and the big one in the pandemic, NAC.
NAC.
Right? So if you have genetic vulnerabilities, like I do and like you do, and you're taking those things, it's going to be a big, big problem. We had someone, again, pre-pandemic, who was taking glutathione IVs, and her psoriasis was so bad, she looked like a tree trunk. Mm-hmm. And she was at one of the biggest hospital centers, most renowned in the country. And they weren't helping her. They were giving her all the things that she couldn't take. And it was really exacerbating a very significant psoriatic condition. So we just had somebody who took a sulfa drug and had a massive, massive response. Stevens-Johnson syndrome. That is where the mucous membranes throughout your body start combusting. They start turning into ulcerations. Stevens-Johnson's can be deadly. And so that's how important these things are. You think you're going to, do something good for yourself, and with glutathione and or vitamin C, which increases iron, which then increases oxalates. If you have those three things, it could be problematic. So people are taking glutathione IVs and vitamin C IVs and vitamin B12 IVs, and they feel like crap. And their practitioners are like, well, you're just herxing. I call BS on that. Okay. There's something going on in the body. It didn't like it. And we have to listen.
So you mentioned joints, and I feel like a lot of people take turmeric for their joints, and then they also take collagen. And I'm a fan of collagen, but there's right and wrong collagen. So touch on turmeric, and then let's get into the differences in the different collagens and what to look out for.
Okay, so turmeric has a multi-pronged impact. If you have the CYP2D6 genetic variant, you're not going to like turmeric because it's going to really downregulate your phase 1 liver detoxification, which is tied to histamine and sulfur, by up to 50%. So there's that piece. Then we have another one of the big four called oxalates that I've mentioned. Turmeric is a heavy oxalate. And so if you have the CYP2D6 plus an oxalate, you're screwed. Because that could actually make you more jointy. Why? Because oxalates create oxalate crystals, or can create oxalate crystals, especially at the joints. And so you take turmeric, you take it therapeutically, you're drinking that golden milk, and it's going to be a problem. Now, it's not a problem for everyone. However, because again, the spike protein disrupted the calcium channel pathway, which makes us more likely to build oxalates. You have turmeric, it's an oxalate. You're getting, you're hitting a tipping point. And so we really have to look at those tipping points.
So real quick on that, essentially our ability to process oxalates 4 years ago might be at this level, but now because of the spike protein for everybody, regardless of your genetics, it has come down relatively speaking.
So yes, and that's why we're seeing a lot of heart conditions, the myocardial infarctions. That's a fancy word for heart attack. It's tied to oxalate metabolism. It's not the only thing, but it is a thing. It's a thing. And they're looking at amyloid fibrils in the individuals of COVID cadavers. So amyloid fibrils and oxalates, they make things. They make cysts, they make fibrils, right? So blood clots, pulmonary embolisms, cysts in the thyroid, cysts everywhere, right? PCOS, this pituitary adenomas is a cyst, right? It's a growth, any kind of growth, neuromas, lipomas, any omas that are fat soluble under the skin, that's tied on some level to oxalates as well, and amyloids.